What's up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and welcome back to the channel. So this is my 2009 Kia Rio, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about why this is my worst Turo investment in the history of my Turo career. Over the last 3 years, I've purchased 17 cars for the Turo platform. I currently have 10 active on the Turo platform, and this car right here has hands down been the worst purchase I've ever made. So I'm going to be breaking down why the Kia Rio was such a mistake, the issues that it's had, and of course, I'm going to be breaking down the numbers of how much this car cost, how much I put into it, and how much money I've made. So let's get started. So here we are in my 2009 Kia Rio, but before we dig into exactly why this car was such a mistake, I have to wish my dad a happy birthday. Today is my dad's 59th birthday. Just look at him. He looks incredible for 59 years old. Anyways, happy birthday, Dad. I love you so much. I appreciate all that you do. All my dad wants for his birthday is for you guys to hit the like button and the subscribe button. So if you want to grant his birthday gift, then make sure to do that. But with that being said, you guys, here we are in my Kia Rio. And, on the surface, this car seems like a solid car. And, I think deep down it really is. Now, if we look around the car, it's very basic. It's gray interior. The back seat is basic gray. And if we go to the front, we have manual locks, manual windows, nothing super special about the dashboard or the center console, and then the steering wheel is just your run-of-the-mill steering wheel. Nothing special about this car whatsoever. And to be honest, the basicness of this car isn't the issue, because I prefer for cars to be very basic. The more basic that a car is, the more simple it is for the guest to use, and the less problems there typically are later down the road. For example, my Toyota Yaris's, which are my favorite Turo vehicles, they have all of the features that this Kia Rio has. But the big difference is the reliability issues, and the fact that a Toyota Yaris is a car that I know inside and out, and a Kia Rio is a foreign object to me. So the first fatal error that we made with this Kia Rio that we haven't made on a lot of other vehicles is going with something that we don't know that well. Now, I've mentioned a lot in the past that my fiance HP helps me manage the Turo fleet, and HP is somebody that has lived and breathed Ford cars for his entire life. Other than Ford, he also knows Toyotas extremely well. He is somebody that is very mechanically inclined with these two makes and models. Well, with the Kia Rio, we found this car on Facebook. It was so cheap that we both felt like it was a good move. I went against what I preach on this channel time and time again, which is to stick with what you know, and we went with something that neither of us knew that well, and the attraction was the incredibly low price. And we bought this car for about $2,300. That was all in, including tax, title, and licensing. But whenever we got to the dealership, there was some severe red flags that ultimately we ended up overlooking. Number one was the fact that the inside of the car had been smoked in quite heavily. Typically, the smoking isn't something that deters us. We've gotten vehicles that had been heavily smoked in before, but this Kia kind of stood out from the rest. In fact, it took us about 6 months to get the smoke smell completely out of this car. Whenever we bought the car and I was in the process of detailing it, I would be sitting in the car for hours cleaning it. I'd go back inside and it smelled like I myself was smoking cigarettes. So the smoke smell was just absolutely unbearable. Fortunately, though, as I sit here today and as I'm sitting in this car, there is no smoke remnants at all. But it took a lot of work and almost a year's time to get the smoke smell out of the car entirely. The second big red flag on the vehicle was engine issues. You see, here we are at the engine, and if you look down at the engine area now, it's nice and clean. But whenever we got the Kia Rio, all of this was absolutely covered in oil. And whenever we took off the oil cap, instead of it being liquid oil all right here, it was like clunked up mud. It was mud texture all around here. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about cars, having mud-like textured oil in your engine of your vehicle is a really, really bad sign. In fact, whenever we saw the vehicle in person, we saw that this was the case. We knew that this was a red flag, but we overlooked it. And that's because the guy who was selling the car had said that he had just replaced the engine, he had just replaced all of the engine components, and that was simply a byproduct of him not cleaning that portion of the engine properly. Basically, the person who was selling the vehicle had talked his way into making us believe that the mud-like oil was not in fact a issue with the vehicle, but was in fact a previous issue that he had since fixed. Now, you see here, the tires are in pretty good condition now, but that wasn't always the case. In fact, whenever we went to look at the vehicle, all of the tires were mismatched, meaning they were all with different tread depths, all different makes, and all different specs. They all were also all dry rotted, and they were extremely old, meaning that they were pretty much expired and they shouldn't have been used anyways. Now, all of these things, the tires, the engine, the extreme smoke smell, all of these are things that we knew were red flags. All of these things we knew were not good signs. If somebody buys a vehicle and they are very cheap in the way that they fix the vehicle, that is a telltale sign that something's probably going to go wrong with this car later on. And the fact that this guy who fixed the car, didn't take the time to clean out the muddy engine, didn't take the time to swap tires on the vehicle that were actually good matching tires. The fact that he kind of threw and taped everything together in order to sell the car, all of this was a sign that he was selling us a dud. And yet we overlooked it because of the fact that the car was such a good deal. Now, almost immediately after buying this car, HP and I realized that we had made a mistake. And almost right out of the gate, we had a ton of issues. We got the tires replaced immediately. We made sure that the oil change was up to date. We made sure that all of the issues that were safety issues were handled. And then we sent it out on its first rental once I cleaned out all of the smoke smell. But within the first rental, the renter complained about the smell, and it was something that I felt like I no longer noticed, and I was hoping a guest wouldn't notice either, but that simply wasn't the case. So once the guest complained, we had to take it off the platform again in order to deep clean it once again to get the smoke smell out. But the problem is it never came out entirely, and the smoke smell was always an issue. It was always a lingering issue. I cannot tell you how many times I cleaned this car, and how many times I had friends, family, and neighbors come and smell this car to see if it smelled like smoke, and every single time, literally until about a month ago, they came back saying that it still smelled like smoke. And it literally took about a year to get the smoke smell out of this car. That was a huge issue that prohibited it from ever being rented consistently out on Turo. Additionally, this car is one of those cars that once you fix one problem, another issue came up. We had an issue with this vehicle having a sensor problem in the engine. We replaced the sensor, we sent it out on a rental, it comes back, and now the car clicks whenever it's driving. Now, HP and I's strategy going into how we plan on fixing this Kia and getting it out on the road or fixing it in order to sell it really comes down to this fixed sensor, and that brings us to the sponsor of this video. Now, the fixed sensor is an OBD2 port sensor, and what it does is you plug this into your car and then you connect it to your smartphone and it tells you what's wrong with your vehicle. Now, OBD2 port sensors are nothing new to the car world, but what sets fixed apart is the fact that it connects to your phone and you not only get to see what's wrong with your vehicle from your cell phone, you can also see a variety of ways on how you can go about fixing the issue that your car is experiencing. But it's not necessarily the sensor that HP and I will be utilizing in order to fix this Kia. In fact, it is the premium subscription feature that Fixed offers. You see, whenever you buy Fixed, you have the option to either opt in for their free subscription or you can sign up for their premium paid subscription. If you have the premium paid subscription, you not only get all the benefits that I've talked about in this video as well as past videos, you also get access to a master mechanic, and you can contact them and you can pick their brain on how to go about fixing your car, what could be wrong with your car, and any issues that are coming up with your vehicle. To me, that feature is incredibly priceless. So me and HP don't know Kia products that well, but a master mechanic does, and a master mechanic can help us figure out what this ticking issue is, and that is something that I am pretty pumped about. Now, if you guys are interested in checking out Fix, this sensor is just $20. The standard subscription is free of charge, meaning you can access the OBD2 port sensor feature for just 20 bucks, which is a steal. And if you want the premium subscription with access to a master mechanic, that is an additional monthly charge. But if you want to check it out, there is a link in the description below. There will also be a link in the pinned comment section as well. Now, in digging into the 2020 numbers for this vehicle, I was actually pretty surprised by how much it made, and it made way more than I thought it did. So in January of 2020, I bought this car for $2,300 in cash, and sitting here today in December of 2020, it's made about $1,600. Of course, I haven't made a profit on this vehicle yet. I'm still in the red by about $700 on the vehicle as a whole, and when we account for oil changes, when we account for getting the car detailed and the smoke smell out, when we account for the tires that need to be replaced, I'm about $500 into the vehicle on top of the $2,300 purchase price, which means I'm in the red about $1,200 on this car. But this figure isn't even really that accurate because of the fact that the engine currently has a ticking problem and we don't know what that problem is, and the car will not be able to be rented out on Turo until we figure out what that issue is, we fix the issue, and then we get it inspected for a mechanic's approval, which will probably take a few dozen hours and will probably cost a few $100s on top of that. But to be honest, the issues that I have with this vehicle isn't even entirely just about the money. I mean, of course, money is a big factor. This is a business and I want to make money renting out cars, but it's also the time aspect as well. $1,200 in the grand scheme of things will not make or break my profit margin, but the time that I've spent researching a Kia Rio, the time that I've spent researching what could be wrong with this car, it simply has not been worth it. And because of that, I don't even know if I'm going to keep this car on the Turo platform once we fix it. My plans with this Kia Rio are quite honestly a bit up in the air. I think that if HP and I can figure out what's going on with this engine, if we can diagnose and fix it in a relatively cost-effective way, then I probably will end up keeping it on the Turo platform. The fact is, I don't want to sell it as is because I know I'm not going to be able to get nearly as much as I paid for it in a sale, but I also know that once I fix it and once the issue is fixed, I'm not going to want to sell it either because at that point it will be good to rent on Turo. So it really is kind of a wait and see. But I can tell you one thing, I'm sick of seeing this car parked outside of my house. But you guys, I wanted to make this video because I think that it's important to include both my good moves and my bad ones. And the fact is, even somebody who does Turo on a semi-full-time basis makes mistakes when buying cars. And this Kia Rio behind me is certainly one of the mistakes that I've made over the years. Ultimately though, this mistake could have easily been avoided by just implementing some of the things that I talk about on this channel. By acknowledging all the red flags and by really taking those and using those as a way to avoid a bad purchase. Also, by sticking to what you know. The fact is, HP and I overlooked a lot of key issues when buying this car. And these mistakes would have all been avoidable if we just would have heeded the warnings that our brains were telling us rather than being sold by a smooth talking mechanic that was selling the vehicle. But with that being said, you guys, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any comments, questions, or anything to add about this mistake of a Kia Rio, I would love to hear it. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next video.